Hello, welcome to Ceramics with Miss Tomimitsu. Today I'm going to start a demonstration to make Sabrina's sprinklers. These are water sprinklers that are made using the SLAB technique, and you can pinch the spout of it, but there's basically a wall, a foot that you're going to be carving holes into it eventually with the perfect hole makers, and a top. Okay, this part we're going to worry about later on, but right now today we're just going to, and here's another one that's carved up really nicely. Remember, this is a ceramics class, but it's an art class. So should you be adding design, folks?
Yes.
Yeah, so make sure you have design. You can add it with impressing, carving, adding appliques, impressing into those. It's your decision what the design is. Okay, so I'm gonna put those to the side, and I'll just show you, this should be the end project today. So just for the first day, you'll have a base and a top, okay, and it could be a square shape, and I'll show you that in a minute, or circular, and either square or circular walls. Okay, this one's a cylinder, so it was circular. It goes on, it will be joined to the circular top and bottom. Now let me ask you, this one still has a lot of plasticity. It's very bendy. Would you connect these yet? No. What's the perfect stage to connect clay?
Leather hard.
Good job. You guys know this. All right, so I'm going to put these to the side, and I'm going to show you how to make these, okay? So the tools that you're going to need, you may want a little bit of water, okay? You're definitely going to need a needle tool. You're going to need 2 sticks, a rolling pin, and you'll want a disc or a tray to have your setup ready. So at the end of the period, you're not hustling trying to get them bagged, and your Ziploc baggie or a bag, okay? So I need 2 sticks because I need to roll out my slab. And if I only use 2 sticks, how thick is that going to be? 1/4 inch, yeah. And I almost forgot, I cut out some clay using this wonderful tool over here already. So I started one other tool. I cut the clay using this, and this is measures a little bit past 1/4 inch. So you still do need to slab. So everyone will get a slice of clay. And I cut this one earlier. Hopefully it still comes apart. Yeah. So everyone will get a piece. And this is the perfect amount to make the walls and, or the wall and both the top and the bottom, okay? And you'll have to do some improvising. I'll show you that to make sure you get it. So I have my slab. But before I do this, before I start slabbing it out, I need to make some decisions. I'm going to decide, you need to decide if it's going to be circular or square in the base shapes, okay? So I drank goat milk for months so we could have these forms, okay, from Trader Joe's. And then we have a whole bunch of circular forms as well. So if you choose a circular form, you're going to choose a circular stencil. If you choose a more squared off form, you choose a squared off stencil, okay? You only need 1 of each, not 2, okay? You do it twice. You don't need to pick up 2 though. And then everyone's gonna use a stencil that's a rectangular, okay? Again, I'll go ahead and demonstrate, because I already made 1 video with a circular one. I'll demonstrate how to do a square. So I have my square stencil and my rectangular wall, and then this container. I'm also going to need a couple other things. I'm going to need a piece of newspaper, because if I slab this clay out and I wrap it directly around a plastic form, what's going to happen?
It'll stick.
It'll stick. It won't come off. So you're going to take a piece of white tape or blue tape. If we have blue tape in the room, we're out of blue tape right now. And you're going to basically typically use your belly. The rounder your belly is, the easier this is. And you put it up against your belly, or I'll just show you for the video wise, that. You're gonna make it really tight, okay? And then a piece of the white tape. Yeah. And you take the tape and you just tape it like that. Don't tape the paper to the container, just tape the paper to the paper. Does that make sense? Because eventually you're gonna be like pulling this out, and you want it to be able to slide out, okay? So, and now I have to slide it back in. Okay, so I have this form here, and I'm gonna lay this to the side. Again, make sure they match. Okay, I've had students that, decide to do a square and then you get a round bottom, and that becomes problematic. So I'm gonna put this to the side, and it's good before you slab out your clay to have all this set up and be ready, okay? And I put these to the side, put everything to the side, and I'm just gonna roll because this is a little bit thicker than a 1/4 inch. And when we roll, we wanna make sure that we use precision, and your rolling pin should just roll easily across without any hills and valleys on your clay. So I like to turn it over once and then do it again. Always make sure you turn it over. And I'm really satisfied with that. Thank you. And now I'm gonna take my rectangular stencil, lay it down. Now other people are gonna be using this stencil, so do you wanna add water to it? No. No. Do you wanna throw it away? No, make sure that we put it back, okay, where we got it from. Number one rule in the studio, right? Put it back and leave it better than you found it. So we have this nice rectangle, and you can lay it on your tray for now, or just to the side. And make sure not to get it overly worked. And I'll lay this to the side, and then I'll make my circles, okay? So I have all this excess clay, and it's obviously or I'll make, I'm gonna make a square, that's right. So it's obviously not gonna fit on here. So you overlap a piece of clay and overlap another one. And the white or the thicker part, you just smear gently into the thinner part without making the thinner part thinner, okay? Even more thinner, okay? And whatever you do on the front or the top, you do on the back. Take the thicker part, and this is much easier than just taking all the scraps and wedging them together. And I'll just add that in there. And it teaches us to make the most of our clay and not have to start all over again with wedging, okay? I'm happy with that. And then you just want to roll out again. And the thinner part stays the same, and the thicker part goes back down to a 1/4 inch. Okay? How does that look? Pretty good? You agree? All right. Stamp of approval. Okay, so then I'm gonna lay down my square. And should I lay it right in the center? No, put it down the edge, right? Because could someone else use this? Like my scraps, right? Conserve, because maybe your neighbor can use a bit of it too, but you want to definitely make sure you get 3 or 2 out of that. Okay, so I have 1 there and put it close as I can. Will this extra part, will you eventually use the rest of this clay? Yeah, you still have to make that spout at the top. Ooh, I went a little bit bigger there, and that's fine. So this is pretty straightforward. Would you guys agree? Okay. This is not the creative part. This is the technical part, okay? As long as you do the technical part correctly, the creative part, you'll get to the creative part quicker, and that's usually the more enjoyable part for a lot of students. So I'm gonna always make sure to smooth the edges, and I could have done that on the other one. Lay this down. And lay this down. Now, if it's the end of the period and you leave these flat, and I didn't think about that the other day, could they, especially if days go by, could this dry flat, this part, and then become problematic when you go to put it around the form? Yes. It could crack, okay? So if that happens, maybe just wet it a little bit and then see how it goes. Maybe rub it with a metal rib, but we have time. Or if it's at the end of the period, you don't have time to put it around your form, just get it to stand up at least. You know what I mean? In about the shape you need it. Okay, so if this were like square, I could technically lay this back down or a piece of newspaper on it, and I could technically do this. Is that more difficult though? If we were gonna finish it up. So, but for overnight, you could do that, okay? And leave it, so it doesn't, so it kind of dries in that shape. But if you have time, and you should have already done this, okay? It only takes a minute to lay this around this form, to lay this clay around this paper covered plastic form. So I'm gonna lay it on it and use your desk more. there should be, I measured all of these stencils out for you guys, so there's a little bit extra, okay? Just a baby amount, or small baby amount, small amount extra. Do you see that on the film? Can you guys see? Okay, so there's a small amount extra. I like to just slice that like that. Okay, so it's angled. Okay, and then see it like that, and then I can take my finger, and this is where you have to use finesse. Just gently, gently, gently smear that, and then you could take your wooden modeling tool. I didn't have one, or a rib, or even the stick if you don't have one. You could take it across, but a rib or wooden modeling tool, and just wipe that clean like that, and kind of straighten it out in here. I've had students ask, well, what about the inside? Do you need to smooth out the inside? I mean, sure, you could later, but as long as you have a good connection here. We didn't have to slip and score because we're smearing really well. And now it's going across it flat, so you want to try to keep it as flat as possible. It should be good, okay? Now, if it's the end of the period, can you leave it on this form overnight?
Yes.
We only have 18 of it, and I have hundreds of students, so can you leave it overnight? No, it's got to come off. Plus, if you're gone for like a week, and even if it's in the bag, is it going to dry up a little bit? Yeah. It'll dry up and go around the form, and what do you think will happen? It'll shrink around the form, and what will happen to the clay? It would be very difficult to get off because of the paper, but could it even crack? Because it's shrinking, right? So you want to, if it's the end of the period, first off, most ideally, you take these over to the blow dryer and you blow dry, okay, for a little while. And again, what's the best plasticity to join 2 pieces or 3 pieces in this case of clay?
Leather hard.
Leather hard. You blow dry them till they're leather hard. So make all 3. But if it's at the end of the period and you don't have time, then you just take this, you just have your neighbor, that you can either hit it yourself, you kind of boom, 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 and pull out gently, okay, your form, and try to keep the shape as best as possible. And then I like to just kind of fold it in on one side. And it's harder with a square, right, to keep that shape or that form. If you are going to be gone for a week, though, or a lot of days, is it smart to leave the paper in there? No, but overnight it'll help it get stiffened up, and it'll actually be okay, right? So you have a choice. You could share a tray with another student and put their work in your work, or you can get a disc and you would lay down, and I think this is a smarter thing to do, especially if you don't have any neighbors, but lay down a piece of paper, lay down another little piece of paper on that, and then lay your project. Oops, another piece of paper, and then your project, okay? Or vice versa. Okay, you could lay the project and put it on top. And then put this in a Ziploc bag. Okay, I'm grabbing one real quick, just so we can demo third drawer down. And when you place it in a Ziploc bag, is it important to put your name on the Ziploc bag? Yeah, I've been saying this, and I still have students, but you want to make sure that you write with a Sharpie your first name, and I will just put Kimmy for mine. And say this is period 5. Okay, first name, last initial is even better, but period 5. And place this in the Ziploc. If yours were a little too tall and doesn't fit in the Ziploc, then don't use a Ziploc, use a trash can. But these should be just the right size. Okay? So Ziploc it, and then the next day you might have to blow dry a little more, or it might get leather hard overnight with that paper between, especially because there's paper between those two. And you can start connecting. So this is the beginning of making Sabrina's sprinklers. And again, you can make them round like Sabrina did hers. Eventually you'll poke those holes. Eventually you'll put a spout on top. But this is the first steps. Okay? Any questions? Comments? Concerns? All right, you guys were an awesome audience. Thank you, period 5. Thank you. Thank you. And at home, don't forget to like, subscribe, and
Smash that notification bell.
smash it. All right, have a good day. Bye-bye.